Video number 4, welcome back. God Laughs at Dirty Jokes book reading. I'm going to be reading chapter 7 and maybe chapter 8 today. I do have coffee in my fancy Fox mug, which was gifted by a coworker when I was wearing a shirt pretty much that looked exactly like this when she gave it to me. I'm not giving you the finger, by the way. And so I love this mug. It's really cool. Anyway, without further ado, chapter 7 is called Big Secrets Don't Come Cheap, but Humility Helps. That's a pretty good title. It's pretty accurate. All right, here we go. Okay, there will continue to be amazing scientific discoveries and technological innovations that challenge an already blurring line between science and spirituality, and which may force us to reconsider the nature of reality. Excuse me. It begins already. In 2012, particle physicists discovered the existence of the long-sought-after, extremely high-energy particle that gives other particles mass, the Higgs boson. The CERN Large Hadron Collider, an atomic particle smasher in Geneva, sent hydrogen protons through 17 miles of underground tunnels at more than 99.999% the speed of light, smashing into each other. The collision generated temperatures 100,000 times hotter than the sun for a fleeting moment, imitating the conditions just after the Big Bang and creating the Higgs for a fraction of a second. It's an enormous achievement, and as with many great discoveries, it simultaneously opens the door to new questions. Our powerful telescopes, microscopes, wave detectors, and other high-tech instruments can see down to an insanely small level of detail. A new surprise for scientists was to find that the smallest bits of matter in the universe, much smaller than an atom, appear pixelated when magnified, as if we're living in a detailed computer simulation, a virtual reality. Other data suggests that we are like 3D holograms living on the holodeck of the Enterprise. Technology is advancing so rapidly that in the future we'll create virtual realities that rival this one in detail and sensation. Who's to say that our reality isn't another civilization's virtual reality experiment? And if so, did someone else create our creator's reality? How will we ever know if we're in the original reality, if it exists? What if our intellect and consciousness can survive this game of life? The universe does a good job of keeping many secrets, including the original moment of creation. We gaze backwards nearly 14 billion years with telescopes to see the beginning, but hit a wall because the Big Bang is shrouded in super hot opaque plasma for hundreds of thousands of years before cooling sufficiently to form the first stars. Perhaps God knows that if we were to actually land on the final question to the ultimate question, perhaps God knows that if we were to actually land on the final answer to the ultimate question of existence, like the number 42 in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, we could only grow deeply unsatisfied because there would be nothing truly important left to ponder. All sense of wonder would be lost. Either that, or having reached full enlightenment, we'd merge back into God and start over again from nothingness. One of the beautiful and maddening things about life is that as soon as you think you got your mind around a big truth, language often fails you. The closer you get to that profound magical answer, the more the words seem to gum up in your mouth, contradicting each other or being misunderstood by others as they stumble out. It's like the Tower of Babel. By trying to build an enormous temple that would reach God, the Babylonians overreached. God stymied their efforts by causing each to speak a different language while attempting to finish its construction. I've cited the Bible, but it should be obvious it's not to be taken literally. It wasn't written by God, but by men. The historical record, as detailed in an interesting book called Don't Know Much About the Bible, implies that the Gospels of the New Testament weren't written until at least 100 years after the life of Jesus. It consists of stories passed down through many generations, which were finally transcribed onto scrolls. How many attempted clarifications, additions, and alterations may have made it into the story over hundreds of years? The Bible has been translated across a half-dozen languages before we get to modern English, which leaves more room for alterations in wording and meaning. The Bible and all religious texts are fragmentary books filled with amazing passages and contradictory irrelevancies. The Sermon on the Mount is a beautiful set of thoughts on compassion, mercy, and love. I moved without needing to know whether Jesus really existed. Someone wise and loving transcribed or composed it, and its lessons resonate. Yeah, Sermon on the Mount is amazing. I haven't read it in a while, but boy, it really moved me the last time I did. Okay, I haven't read the Quran or the Torah, but the suspicion is always the same, that having been written by men, and always men, never women, and not God, they're imperfect philosophical documents, of some extracted value, but far from absolute. If God exists and wanted to provide a set of rules to live by, he, she, it could have literally dropped a golden book from the sky that reads itself to you and leaves little doubt as to its magical divine nature. There are probably many good reasons why this has never happened, including the limitations it would impose on intellectual curiosity, speculation, and individual beliefs. It is likely that a man named Jesus lived 2,000 years ago, dispensing wisdom and guidance for leading a spiritual life. Short of observing a miracle firsthand, how would anyone have distinguished Jesus from a lunatic? If someone like Jesus lived today, he'd probably be persecuted just the same and possibly hounded to the grave by a bunch of narrow-minded Christians like the ones that the church my brother used to attend. Oh, snarky. Did Jesus actually say he was the Immaculate Son of God in his lifetime? That idea might have grown after his death instead, when he became more myth than living being. In truth, isn't each of us a son or daughter of God? Aren't we also miraculous and divine? We were each sent here or chose to come as an eternal spiritual being to have an experience in a temporary physical shell. We're messengers like Jesus when we embody generosity of spirit. Knowledge is a mixed blessing. Perhaps we're meant to realize, despite all we know, the limits of our understanding help us reconcile to half wisdom, to accept existence as it is, moving humbly forward with an incomplete picture. Then we can enjoy the ambiguities and cosmic weirdness while continuing to learn new things. The answers to life we come up with remain subject to doubt, and that's okay. Civilization advances on partial answers to practical and existential matters. So my book of truths, as I understand life, ultimately has to fail, at least partly. These ideas are no more absolute than those in any religious text I follow, and that's the only way it can be. Celebrating the mysteries of the universe is not to defend ignorance or to suggest that one shouldn't seek answers to big questions. Closed-mindedness is a drag, and worse are people who know little but act like they know everything, and railroad others with their lack of logic, thoughtfulness, and curiosity. You have to be vulnerable and brave to admit that there are things you don't understand, and to seek answers from those who may know more. This is how knowledge and courage are built. Modesty seems to be the only way to gain access to life's secrets. It benefits your cellular health and raises your vibration. Yeah, I still feel that way. I mean, as I've mentioned before, I wrote this in 2014, but so I find that some things resonate more with me than others as I read it again. But yeah, for sure, on the humility, you can't get access to the deeper stuff without it. I don't believe. Okay, anyway. Whether we were created by a god or we live nestled deep inside a fractal series of virtual realities, if a creator exists, surely it's hoping for signs of intellectual and spiritual progress. If my consciousness and intellect can survive death or get promoted to another level of the ongoing game of life, then I'd like to maximize my chances by being open-minded and loving. I want to be interesting, both for my own satisfaction and fun, to intellectually stimulate others and be inspired in return, and to live up to the potential given by creation. This cliche is true. The best things in life are simple: joy, honesty, generosity, laughter, empathy, and trust. If you lose your way in complicated head games with damaged people, you can always start back there. If your friends and family don't value these qualities, there's something wrong with them, and they may not all be worth keeping. If you've become too jaded to any longer enjoy the simple good things, you probably need to do some soul searching to get back to elegant simplicity, as I sometimes must. Those who put too much value on their social status, career, appearance, and wealth and believe in their own infallibility are in for an eventual karmic shock. Pretense leads to self-delusion. Self-delusion is like living with a bag over your head. Living with a bag over your head is a great way of not experiencing reality. Reality is necessarily a mixed bag of beauty and horrors, but the beautiful parts are exquisite. Arrogance and pretense are cancers to the body, spreading like black poison in our cells. Pretense and formality are veils that keep us from communicating more honestly. I have some education, but no interest in an overly intellectual yet emotionally distant academic approach or arty-farty vagueness to life. Wealthy, educated classes sometimes rely on pomp and protocol to keep the focus off actual ideas. Some are sinister characters, and there are intelligent sociopaths in positions of great power. Can I think of any? Can you? Be careful if and when you wander into their world. They don't play by the same rules as anyone who was raised with any degree of respect for others. Those with wealth and an entitlement mindset like to feel superior, to effectively enslave their perceived social inferiors. They value exclusivity and access to others with fame and wealth, who they perceive as their peers in a special club. They're simply afraid to be real or have no idea what the world is really like, removed from the daily struggles of the majority. Anyone who tries to elevate himself above others and envision himself as brilliant is, of course, quite stupid. Raw intelligence and or multiple degrees don't necessarily lead to wisdom. Most of the truly profound ideas in the world can be communicated with language that a teenager or smart child would understand, though it should be noted that less educated people have collective affectations too. No group of people is immune. The affectations of the wealthy and powerful are more twisted and dangerous because, in positions of authority, their actions negatively affect far more people when they behave badly. Then there's a little break in this chapter here. I should mention that I sort of focused on the maybe the downside of sort of an entitlement mentality, but the flip side is that this isn't in the book, but and it is obvious, but the humble people, the everyday people who do the right thing, who don't maybe have as much wealth or they don't have a stack of degrees, but they do the right thing. They just either innately in their heart they do the right thing, or the way they were raised, they do the right thing. They consider other people's feelings in their actions, and they operate from good intentions. That's gonna really just lift their life, even if it at times is hard. So as much as I focus sort of on the wealthy and the entitlement mindset here, I wanted to kind of balance that off with the positive. So the good simple things. Anyway, this is all pontification, so I can't say that that's the end of my soapbox, because the whole book is a soapbox. But let me jump back in here. So again, still in the middle of chapter 7, which is called Big Secrets Don't Come Cheap, but Humility Helps. And I'll resume the rest of the chapter. Another big challenge of being human is trying to reconcile the innate needs and desires of the body with the conscious mind's knowledge of what's best and the spiritual yearnings of the soul. Balancing 100,000 years of evolution and competitive survival with notions of decency, restraint, and community is a tall order. Many people aren't good at it, or for periods of time. Body, mind, and soul in collaboration and conflict with differing agendas. We get confused sometimes and struggle to understand our own behavior as it relates to what we consider our values. On a biological level, all nature desires is more of the species and the continuation of life. I sometimes wonder if the main function of parents is to advance the next generation. Once they've fulfilled the mission, perhaps nature is indifferent to the emotional needs and continuation of their coupling. It necessarily becomes about taking care of the kids. An animal must do certain things to survive, competing and killing for food and extending the species through sex. We're animals and spiritual beings who possess enough intelligence to be self-aware. Cats and dogs aren't introspective, but still spiritual. If you're kind to most pets, they will reward you with loyalty and love. Affection and companionship are key to the wellness of most animals, including people. African elephants are loving creatures. They nurture each other, but pack life doesn't always protect them from poachers who kill them for their valuable tusks. The animal fights for survival and sometimes loses, just like a person. Violence can be unavoidable, but love is still the powerful force that gives life meaning. The cells of the body register it like sunlight, an energy that fosters health and well-being. It can never be meaningless to love, even if your fate in this life is defeat. Loving is its own end, an inherent victory. Perhaps when we leave our bodies and no longer relate to a physical shell, we won't be consumed with reconciling our animal desires with the lofty intentions of spirit. Existing as spirit might not be superior to mortality, though. They seem like such different experiences as to be incomparable. Reincarnation seems possible and potentially desirable because once you've been dead and immortal a while, it might get boring lounging on a cloud every day, polishing the sky. Thanks to songwriter Patty McAllen for that quote. Is the playground of disembodied spirits all of history? As spirits, will we not only be able to travel anywhere in the universe or even outside it, but also to any time? Could we peek in on events on Earth and other star systems hundreds or billions of years ago? Will we carry what we learned in this life into our next mortal life somewhere, somewhen else? You might decide to try Earth again, even though you know how tough life can be. My mom feels like she's been reincarnated many times. For whatever reason, I feel this is my first and last life here. There are many other galaxies to try, and maybe other universes too. Now, interestingly, since that's the end of chapter 7, since I wrote this, I have had a astrological chart reading, which I did not expect to be anywhere near as revealing as it was. And my friend Marla, who actually she has her own channel. It is called I think it's Twinstrology. I'll look it up and maybe try to put it in the notes in the bottom. She did the chart for me. She lives in Buffalo and she has her own YouTube channel. Now we don't actually agree on certain things regarding spirit, but I will say that she nailed my astrological chart, and I did not expect it to be as accurate as it was. And the point that I want to make about it is that the cards that she pulled as part of the astrological reading were so spot on as far as my life, my sort of arts-driven life, how spirituality has become more a part of my life, my feelings about power structures and authority and the dangers there, and to some extent my concerns about authority, concerns about the power of authority. She said that that's been a theme in multiple lives for me, and then when she laid it out like that, I could really see it. It made so much sense. I'll try to explain that maybe more another time. I am writing about it for the hypothetical second book. Well, it's not hypothetical. It's just I have a lot of work to do to ever get it out. So that's a couple years down the road, I think. Anyway, enough tangents. Back to the book. We're going to go on. I think we have just enough time for chapter 8, which is called First Eyewitness. In 2007, my ex-girlfriend Jane got a first-hand account of one of my head-bobbing visitors. Remember that from the earlier chapter, the head-bobbing in the third eye. We'd been dating for 3 months, and I'd recently told her about my ghost experiences. Jane's one of the first people I ever told. I trusted her and felt believed. It was nice. We were lying in bed, waking on a Sunday morning. I felt a presence, the familiar pressure in the middle of my forehead, and told her we had company. She was startled and a little afraid. When I sense a visitor, the best way to communicate is to relax. I've learned that they access us closer to sleep and in dreams because we're more at ease and less naturally defensive. The visitor began to slowly and subtly move my head in an oval pattern. So it was like this. My eyes were closed and I was talking quietly to Jane at the same time. The circular orbit-like pattern was unusual in its precision. The rotation was so perfectly mechanical, slow, and controlled that I knew I wouldn't be able to imitate it later. In my unscientific opinion, it was a more perfect oval than any human being could have faked. Does the circular motion look perfect? I asked, because that's how it feels. It was convincing to Jane. She said yes. We asked a few simple questions, including if the visitor was simply passing by to say hi. It said yes. My head bobbed forward. I was very surprised to receive a spirit with someone else present. Jane saw it with her own eyes. It had never happened before, but I was happy to share it. Since then, a few other visitors have arrived with guests present. Jane later told me one of the first things she felt when the visitor arrived was, why not me? As in, why didn't she receive it? Again, spiritual connections are available to everyone, but they tend to manifest more with people who are at the right place and time. Connectivity comes and goes. Absolutely for me, because I'm not nearly as consistently psychic as many of the awesome YouTube psychics. Connectivity comes and goes. Possibly once we become more enlightened and our vibration is up, we can access it more consistently. There are periods when I'm more or less open to reception, like a manual dial radio going in and out of tune. The happier I am, the more resolved within, the more synchronous in my thoughts, feelings, and actions, like that song by The Police, the more I align with spirit, and when I write about it too. That's definitely true. Although it didn't happen to her, Jane was a witness. She was meant to see it at that point in her life for a reason. She could explore it too, though I don't believe she's pursued it. You still have to be careful how you go about inviting it in, though. For every friendly tickler and head bobber, there are just as many unfriendlies, and they like to cause problems for hobbyists. So, yeah, that is all still true, and lest anybody get the wrong idea about me, there's definitely psychic ability in my family, but I truly believe everybody has psychic ability because we're all from the same source, right? We all come from, the belief is that we all come from God. We're all interconnected. Nothing is really separate from anything else when you get down to it. But absolutely, the connectivity can come and go, especially when things in your life maybe aren't going perfectly well, or during like a pandemic and we were all a little more focused or worried about those kind of day-to-day life issues, and we get a little further away from sort of our lighter spiritual side. So I know that there are many psychics who they can channel anytime, anywhere. They're not restricted at all really by the circumstances of everyday life, but I'm not like that. I don't do readings because I don't have that consistent ability. I just am someone who, I guess you could call me I'm kind of like a spiritual journalist. Like it's super interesting to me. I really believe that the foundation of kind of life is spiritual, and that love really is the kind of the underlying most important thing about living. And I like to chronicle. I like to detail stories that highlight that belief. That's really where I come in, and I do that too with the songs that I write. Now, not every song is going to be spiritual, but a lot of songs that I've written over the years feel like they came through as like a collaboration with the other side, so to speak. Like I'm in an altered state of consciousness and a very joyful space, a very, very calm space for exchanging ideas and receiving ideas, and working kind of as a vessel for spirit. So that's where I come in. And that's really all I have to say about it at the moment. So I'll get this one posted, and then I'll keep reading, and we'll keep going for as many people as want to take the ride. So thanks again for checking me out. I appreciate it, and see you again soon.